I didn't hear that in the story, but I have 8. I've actually learned how to use 8.
I don't like it.
I've actually learned.
It sounds fun.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks very much for being here. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Ryan. I'm a junior, and I'm going to be taking over leading the briefings for Dan this semester, and hopefully in the future as well. And this week, the past several semesters, Rich Grumm from the National Weather Service office here in State College has led our first briefing of the semester, and he's here this week as well. Some interesting things to talk about.
So I'm good to go. I don't need to be mic'd up or anything. You're good to go. Okay, so this is I call it the PSU community briefing. Penn State has done this for, I don't know, a decade or so. It's really good stuff. And of course, we have a big crowd because all is quiet on the Western Front today, right? And so an overview of course, the last 2 days we had 2 little clippers that could. We had the little 1-inch snow, and I had almost 3 inches of snow last night. So basically northerly flow clippers. We have the coastal teaser that looks like it's going to just miss us, and maybe we'll get some flakes, but I used Head and Shoulders, so I'm not sure about that. So, and then we have the little clipper that might. It's actually a pretty big looking clipper coming in Sunday night, Monday. And then we'll talk about the chilling end. So, but everybody, if you've been forecasting the weather as long as I have, you develop little rules of thumb. And clippers, usually you get a light to moderate snow from the clippers, but they really get the good snow. They have to pass just over you, just to your south. You don't want to be north of the track of the clipper. And the last 2 little clippers that came by pretty much went over us. So the one yesterday was pretty good. It delivered a little bit of snow, enough that I spent almost 2 hours in the woods skiing last night. But we had these 2 good little clippers that I guess gave most of the area 3 to 4 inches over the last 2 days. The models show a better clipper yet to come. And then there's the coastal teas, and I just included the rain, snow, freezing rain image for 12Z on the 24th from the GEFS here, showing what it might look like at near the height of the storm as it passes off the coast. But this is a southern stream storm. There's no blocking high, which is probably why we see a lot of rain in the coastal plain. There's nothing to keep the cold air, no good ageostrophic flow to keep the shallow cold air in. And usually, historically, a lot of times we get coastal storms with no anchoring high. The storms tend to track north and west of their position. And currently, we're going to be bridesmaids in this. Maybe we'll see a flake or 2, but you can see we're on the extreme edge of any of the significant precip with this event that's coming up tomorrow night to Saturday. I have here a perspective of the GEFS through 60 this morning, showing the forecast. This one here being the most recent, and this being the oldest, showing kind of an evolution, if you will, the ensemble DT of the storm. And it doesn't show up that clearly, but usually when these storms track to the north and west but this storm has been actually pretty consistently predicted by the GEFS. But you can see a fairly deep cyclone south of Long Island, and I can't even read it. My eyesight isn't that good. It's 18Z on the 24th. So the storm's going to pass pretty far offshore. Most of the people in this room who have hair at least half as gray as mine know that we really want to see a low, especially a tight, round low like this. It's got to cross about the mouth of the Delmarva to be any real serious consideration here for snow. Because the storm's very circular, not a big penetrating easterly jet. But this storm's going to produce a fairly narrow band of heavy snow and heavy rain, because it doesn't have the ability to bring a lot of moisture back into the west. So this is the clipper. This is 9 GFS runs of the clipper, and if you know the rule of clippers, it looks pretty good, because some of the clippers had the low passing maybe along New York border, but the latest run here, and this is valid at 6Z on the 26th. You can see it's got a 2 sigma below normal surface cyclone, which is pretty impressive for a clipper, and it's going to go right over Pennsylvania, so it's going to probably put us in the sweet spot. So this could be the mother of all clippers in recent years, potentially, but I won't go out on a limb and completely say that. It could. So, but I think if there's a clipper that's going to overachieve this winter, this could be it. So, and then we have the first little chill. This is just 9, again, GFS runs. You can see it's trying to pull in around the 27th and 28th some below normal air, especially into the southeastern United States. I guess it's a good time to buy orange juice futures or something like that. But anyway, you can see it looks like it's going to bring in some minus 14 to minus 16, 18 degrees C air, if you believe. This is an ensemble mean. But it's going to be pretty chilly midweek. And then it tries to bring in, this is the NACE, and this is a kind of a promising image in a way. the left side shows the North American pattern. You can see another slug of like minus 16, minus 18 degrees Celsius air. This is a blend of the Canadian ensemble and our ensemble coming into the northeast United States. You see the coldest air, of course, goes into New England, but we're still going to be below normal. Cold, at least minus 12 to minus 16 contours in the state on 18Z on the 31st. The other interesting thing about this image is there's an anomalous ridge over northwest North America into Canada, and there's actually a hint of some split flow, but I think the flow is so fast here that any storms will be well to our south in this kind of flow. So our only hope is, for next week is, later in this period, if there's any, short waves that can come around the trough and we can get little weak clippers out of this pattern. But basically, after the big clipper this late Sunday to Monday, we're just going to be kind of cold and dusty, I think. So we'll kind of like look a little better at some of the details. Open a tab. Which browser did you use?
Keep going, Firefox.
Firefox. So we'll start out with the NACE. It's a good first guess, I guess. There's no analysis for it, but you can see the evolution. I gotta hide this little guy again. So you never know what's going to pop up on your screen with Windows, right? So we'll see the evolution of the pattern. You can see the shortwave down in the southwest. A little bit of cold air, very minor pocket of cold air with it. Some big cold air locked up in here. And this thing is going to track across the United States, pull up some warm air ahead of its 850 temperatures and anomalies down here. It's going to push some really cold air into Texas and south. I mean, when I worked for the Air Force, when I saw this, I knew we had people who were doing some not so nice things in early 1980s down in Honduras and stuff, and Nicaragua. And when you saw this kind of pattern, you knew it was going to flip the helicopters on the ridges when we were in Nicaragua, but we weren't in Nicaragua. Something I did when I was younger. So anyway, you can see the surge of warm air up the coast, the baroclinic wave, and a big deep trough below normal heights. That kind of goes away. And then there's a hint you can see just starting to show up here of the clipper. You can see there's some below normal heights and a surge of cold air. Our clipper comes through, and the persistent pattern through all this is the ridge up there over Idaho and Montana. And it's actually into Montana, which is another old rule of thumb they used to teach people. I don't know if they still teach that. Where the ridge is in the western United States, and the ridge was just a little bit too far east for us during this first wave. But here comes our clipper. It deepens a nice trough over the eastern United States. The ridge of North America kind of drifts into the eastern United States, and then the pattern kind of reloads, and you can see the cold air mass that finally comes in over the northeastern United States, the minus 28, and at times it's actually a minus 32 contour. Some really almost the creme de la creme of the cold Arctic kind of air in at least Canada, just to our north. So we'll have a glancing blow of some pretty cold air. And as we move into February, you can see we stay kind of in this trough, but the pattern relaxes and maybe something comes out of the southern stream. Maybe our climatologically active time in February will live up to its billing, but it's too far out. But we stay pretty chilly, it looks like if we through the 6th of February. If you believe this model has any idea what the long wave pattern is, it looks like it's still in the 6th of February. Still has a ridge on the west coast. So the bottom line is, if we can pick up some snow on Sunday, we'll probably have good skiing at Tussey and good skiing in the woods around here. It's early February, and I'm a cross-country skier, so I'm kind of happy about that. So if we go over here in the satellite image, is this a loop?
I think it's still.
There's the loops.
So you can hit the loop there to go apart. There's an 8 frame, a 16 frame. Just go down US. IR.
16 frame is probably 8 frame is probably sufficient, right? My eyes. I ate something with chili peppers in it. Somebody put candy, and my eyes are still tearing. So I got surprised by spicy candy before I came over here. But you can see the little wave coming out of the southwest. It's pretty significant southern stream wave, and that's going to be the storm on the east coast. That's going to be of note starting tomorrow into Saturday. But it looks like it's going to basically miss us. You can see the system back in here and the lingering wave behind it. I guess they had some pretty good snow in New Mexico out of it. But you can see the storms moving across the western Gulf states today, and that's going to be the weather maker south and east of us. So then I'll move to the GFS to look at I'll move out to the eastern scale. See the evolution of that little wave. And so You can see it in this projection. I'll go to the U.S. scale to start, I guess, so we can see the storm as it comes across the country. You can see the big anticyclone and that kept keeping the cold air pretty much to our south. I guess we must have had a front. I noticed my dew point drop. My temperature shot up about 4 degrees this morning between 6 and 7:30, and then it went down again, and then I had about a 5-degree drop in my dew point. So a little frontal boundary must have just slid through here around 9-ish.
So yesterday there was like a little wavy warm front that was towards southwest. I think it finally passed this morning, and then the little cold front moved through.
Yeah, but when it got to about 32 over 31, it probably ruined the snow. So you can see the little wave in the Gulf, the precip in West Texas. It comes across, and then the storm starts to take character as it moves across the Gulf coast, and the precip's pretty substantial down in the southeast United States. And then on Saturday it makes the turn. It starts coming up the coast. It looks like it redevelops with Hatteras. Kind of a classic East Coast winter storm, except there's no blocking high. There's actually a shortwave passing by to our north, and that's probably one of the reasons that normally you see a nice storm with this, but it's kind of cold air. You think it's going to snow maybe as far south as Washington, D.C., but there's no blocking high. There's no source to maintain the cold air, so the coastal plains probably going to all go to rain, and then the precip moves up the coast. And I think at this time it probably is in our advantage to move to the eastern scale, and then you see the evolution along the east coast and look at the precip in 24-hour increments. So this thing shows that by about 3Z on the 24th at the precip, which is I guess tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, into Saturday, the precip begins to come into southeast Pennsylvania. Very, very light. I mean, I'm going to lose my ability to click forward. It looks like it's about 2 to 8 millimeters. Very light precipitation, and then the storm kind of moves off the coast, and just too far to our east to be of consequence. And then this model actually shows the evolution of the clipper coming right down over us. And if we zoom into the Pennsylvania scale, because this storm is more of interest to us, the GFS. Unfortunately, this doesn't fall in the range of the SREF. It's beyond the forecast range of the SREF. But the GFS shows a pretty deep cyclone, 2.5 standard deviations below normal low, passing over southern Pennsylvania. So here in State College, we're going to be like in the sweet spot, based on the rule of clippers. But you can see the QPF across the state. Of course, there's some terrain effects, but it looks like some areas are going to receive over 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of precipitation in this model, which would imply. And we should at least get climatological snow out of a storm like this. We should at least get 12-to-1 ratios. So we're looking right now at a potential 3 to 7 inch snowfall, which from a clipper is pretty impressive. That's just using this one single model. Hopefully, by the time I switch to the GEFS, its QPF will have populated. And the precipitation type for this is pretty much all snow because it's really cold at 850. But I can show you that if you want to see that. But we're really cold. Want to see it?
Well, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What's the sense at your office and maybe amongst the National Weather Service with the quote-unquote fix that was applied to the GFS, and how do you think that's factoring into this forecast, if at all?
Well, I ran a parallel site of the GFS and the GFS Power before the new GFS took over. On a day-to-day basis, I saw very small differences. Statistically, the model that they implemented scored just a shade better over the course of like 30-day periods of time. So it's still about the 3rd best performing model in the world. The parallel made the operational number 4, and then the parallel when it became operational was stayed number 3 behind the UK and the EC model statistically. But I didn't notice any great differences. Did you?
I mean, I just don't know the track record of it or anything.
It's very simple. Most of these changes were minor, and just I
didn't think it was a big overall.
Yeah. Well, they're getting ready for some of the big upgrades that are going to probably come through in November. And this is really to get this model ready so they can update the core of the GEFS, I guess, in April. GEFS is going to go down to 35 kilometers in April. So I won't go beyond this time scale. We know it's going to get cold. Let's see if we can get this thing to switch over to the GEFS. Let's hope it's been populating. It'd be more popular if it was populated. So we'll look at the evolution of the cyclones in the GEFS so we can look at some of the uncertainty issues. But you can see it's got the same low coming up the coast, and it's clearly got a lot of uncertainty on the north side of the storm. It's pretty good. You see the spread on the north side of the storm is where the storm is going to develop, and that's probably because it's 2 cyclone centers. And then the storm kind of moves up the coast, kind of redevelops. A lot of uncertainty on the western edge of the storm, so there's issues how far close to the coast it's going to track. But for the most part, it's going to remain far enough east of the Delmarva Peninsula that's not going to be a serious forecast issue here in State College, but it could be an issue in Harrisburg, especially mixed precipitation. By the time they get to New York City, it could be a mixed precipitation issue. In southern Jersey and the Washington, D.C. area, they're going to be upset because this is going to be their winter of discontent. So anyway, that storm goes away, and then the next cyclone comes in, and you can see it's a really deep clipper. That's a pretty impressive pressure anomaly, I believe, for a clipper. But if you look carefully at the spaghetti, I know it's lunchtime, so you might be hungry. If you look really close at the spaghetti up here, there's a lot of uncertainty where that cyclone is actually going to track in, because Michigan is pretty good spread, so I wouldn't be jumping over what the snowfall totals are. But when you filter all that out, it's amazing how deep the low itself actually is. From all that uncertainty, what's spread in the upper image to have this fairly substantial spread that goes from northern Michigan back into Minnesota. I mean, we're looking at 4 to 8 hectopascals of spread, and then you come down, and you still have pretty good agreement. So that says that despite the spread, it's a pretty deep cyclone in all the runs. And the cyclone then comes, pretty much just over Pennsylvania. We're in the sweet spot. I mean, if this forecast changes, we're going to be upset. But right now, like if this would have happened, you couldn't ask for to be a better place when a clipper comes by. But still, there's significant spread. There's some members that have the cyclone. Oh, I missed that. What?
It will change.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And you can see the cyclone. Some of them have a closed cyclone already over Cape Cod, but generally it's a pretty deep-looking little clipper, and then it moves away. And we talk about the cold, but we won't focus on that. So let's be optimistic here. And first, we'll look at the 850 temperatures. I'm stalling for time because I know for a fact that when I checked with Dan, the plumes didn't populate yet, and the pops were still. I run everything sequential because I'm not that smart. So anyway, the pops haven't run yet. I'm hoping if I go longer, they'll begin to populate. So here's our 850 temperatures, and you can see we start to get the zero line comes crushing through the Baltimore, Washington area, all the way to Harrisburg at times, and you can see there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of spread. There's clearly a swath of precipitation issues that run from Harrisburg across Philadelphia to New York City. Of course, even if it's zero on Long Island, if they get a good easterly component, they're going to pull in the marine layer. But you can see there's some really, really warm air just off the coast. I don't know if anybody looked yesterday, but about 100 miles offshore, when it was snowing in Washington, it was like 70 degrees on some of the buoys. And you see how warm it was? It was in the 70s offshore yesterday. That warm sector really came up. And this storm has a nice, impressive warm sector. And there's a lot of spread right around the rain-snow line, but so it looks like southeast Pennsylvania through Philadelphia, New York City, they're under the gun for precipitation-type issues. I could see this being one of those storms that starts as snow, goes to mixed or rain, and goes back to ends as a little bit of snow. Then the cold air comes in on us on Sunday, and then we're like -4, -8. You can see the troughiness with the clipper coming through Sunday night, Monday, but we're like -8 to -10 during most of that. So precipitation types aren't an issue. The issue is, will that storm track in the right position for us? So now let's take a leap of faith and hope that we got some cute pops. We have pops, and we'll just zoom in on Pennsylvania. We'll be myopic. I'm good at that. So anyway, the GEFS shows the precip arriving Saturday sometime, probably around midnight, plus or minus by 3 hours, and it actually has about a 5% chance, if you will, that we could actually see some snow overnight here in State College. That means like one member. But you can see there's a high probability that precipitation will arrive overnight Saturday. This is ending at 6Z, so you can see by 0Z, ending at 0Z, Friday evening as the rush hour is kind of winding down the DC area, there's a 5% chance that the precip will arrive, probably initially as snow or mixed precipitation. And it looks like by 6Z, the precipitation's probably getting going in the Harrisburg area, and maybe we'll get a couple of flurries, maybe not. And then the storm's going to pivot. We get up to a whopping 20% chance by 12Z, so maybe we'll have some light snow and flurries in the air. And you can see the bulk of the precip is well to our south, and it just pivots. We're in that low probability area, and a very high probability of precipitation. We're in this 70 to 95% range, from the DC area, and then 70% area back in Harrisburg, Lancaster, Lebanon County area. So clearly our southeastern counties that we forecast for are under the gun for kind of snow and mixed, ending in snow. It's going to be pretty ugly. And then by Saturday evening, it's pretty much moving out. And by late Saturday evening, it's pretty much gone except for the East Coast. Yes?
What do they, that's a tenth of an inch, what do they look like for 100th of an inch?
Oh, I didn't. I can do, I use 0.05 actually,
Okay.
because
And that's 12 hours, right?
because if you use 100th, it'll always be too wet. Okay. Yeah. So this brings the precip. Yeah, we're on the edge of everything. But it's not much faster because it all comes in kind of at once. There's no real big difference in the timing. But the good thing is it shows you like 18Z Sunday, the clipper could actually begin to affect us. Every time I say clipper, I have that. I see a dolphin. I think clipper, but you got to watch TV in the 60s to get that one. So anyway, you can see the clipper coming in. The 500th is really good. Looks like the clipper comes in Sunday evening. It'd be nice if it came in and started snowing before it got dark. Nice to cross-country ski in the light. So when it's snowing, and then it looks like it's overnight. It picks up in intensity, and then by 12Z Monday, it begins to move out and it gets more autograph in nature. So let's look at the probability of a half inch in 24 hours. This is what we all want to see, right? See? Yeah. Well, you can see that the good probability of a half inch precip clearly in the southeast over the weekend. And yeah, this model has the GEFS is having trouble generating a half inch of QPF. Looks like I need better glasses. I don't do a quarter, but a tenth. I can't read this, but on this computer, looks like about 0.2 to 0.4 is liquid here in the ensemble mean. I don't have a probabilistic for, but it looks like we have a really good shot at 2 inches if you use 10 to 1. If you use 12 to 1, we're probably looking at a minimum 3-inch snow. I think this is kind of underdone maybe, but because that's a heck of a clipper. Let's just look at the 850 winds.
We hear some honking over here.
Yeah.
What's that?
When you hear you
Crows?
Honking on the clipper.
So there's not a lot of easterly wind anomalies with the storm. So right now, I guess if you, I don't know, the Streff will probably have better details when it gets into the realm of the Streff, but it looks like there's a potentially good amount of precipitation, a couple inches of snow. If it comes in fast enough, it might not even delay school on Monday. So, any questions? No, Dan. What?
Takes on the European?
I didn't look at the European the 12Z. Does anybody look at the European 12Z?
Not yet.
They look at the 0Z?
You want the 0Z up?
Well, here's the, you're talking about this event?
Yeah.
Modest, broken, event, probably a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, the GFS looks very wet. I haven't seen.
Do you want to see? I can pull it up for you.
If you want to, I could pull it up too, actually. But we go for everybody else while he's pulling it out.
Hey, Ray. Most of the time, these clippers are moisture starved.
They are.
And is there some significant additional or unusual source of moisture?
I didn't look at the precipitable water, but they usually are pretty moisture starved. My guess is that if you do enough lift, it might make probably generate 2-3 tenths.
We have 30 hours.
Our high snowfall amounts with these usually rely on. Some of our better clippers produce like 15-1 snow ratios here. So if you want to see a lot of snow, it's going to be snow ratio driven. I don't think it's important. Like there's only like 2 to 3 tenths in the GEFS.
Just scroll over the numbers at the bottom.
Scroll. Is AccuWeather?
No, this is WSI.
So scroll up. So this gets us to this the 0Z.
Yep.
So there's the storm going up. It looks very GEFS guess. Here comes the clipper. It's a pretty deep low in this model too. It looks like it loses all circulation. Is this an ensemble or is this a single model? Very much weaker solution than the GFS. Further south, which is not good, and then it redevelops offshore. So this says that we might get an inch or 2 of snow here. Big, huge. What's that? Yeah. Huge difference. Like it jumps to the coast too fast. It looks like southern Pennsylvania and Maryland will be in the sweet spot. So it'd be nice to have seen an ensemble blend of all the deterministic models and see how this is covered.
You want that?
What's that?
Ensemble of all the sea level pressures? I can do that.
Yeah, what the heck? Ignore the man behind the curtain. I'll keep my gold up his pant leg. Somebody watched The Wizard of Oz.
I can do. You want 500 or
what's
like
that?
This? There's your options. I can do a full ensemble comparison.
Full ensemble. What's that? What's it? Put it on. Let's see what we got.
So Operationals on the top, ensembles are on the bottom.
What models are those? UK? I can't.
So this is GFS, European, Canadian.
Oh, the Canadian, eh? You betcha.
So what do you want, 60?
That's the storm. That's the weekend storm.
Yep.
Where's the Clipper?
Keep going. Too far. Thank you. Yeah.
So this is the GFS.
Yep, so the top are operational models, the bottom row is ensemble models.
So the GFS is in a world all its own. Except the ensembles look very similar. The Canadian ensemble has the best solution. I'll pick the model today as the Canadian ensemble. But so there's a lot, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty. We saw that in the spread. There's a lot of uncertainty this low. But if it tracks as the GFS has, or even close, it might be a fun storm. If it goes with the EC, it's going to be the big nothing. A trail would probably know more about that than me. And the ensemble would say, looks like it could actually be a pretty good snowstorm along the coast and that easily flow, and that ensemble member verified. So we have a lot of time to change the forecast. Any other questions? Yes.
Platform is hosting an event this weekend, and we have some guests flying in Philly.
What day?
I believe it's either Friday or Saturday. I don't know exactly.
Better be Friday.
Yeah.
There could be de-icing aircraft, and the visibility will come down, so that'll decrease the flow of aircraft on Saturday. Saturday, you're going to have aircraft flow problems, potentially de-icing problems. You know, when the ceiling and visibility drop at airports, they decrease the interval between takeoff and landing. Philly, there's a potential they can be delayed. Friday would be great. Anybody else?
With the potential Clipper system, I know there have been some comparisons that have been made to storm system, Clipper system in January of 2005. Are you familiar with this Clipper system, or?
After about 35 years, they're all a blur to me. I clipped them out of my memory.
Okay, because it was a very, from what I could see, it was a very similar looking overall setup where you had a very energetic shortwave coming out of Canada, and that was a very significant Clipper as well. I've also seen the day earlier you had showed a split flow like pattern.
Yeah, there's a cut-off
around
flow.
day 8 or so.
Yeah.
I've also seen comparisons to February 2003 with that.
Well, I know people like, I'm not a big analog kind of person, you know, but I know people use analogs, and they're, you know, sometimes there's general patterns produce similar events, I guess you'd say, but I'm kind of the anti-analog.
Okay.
Paul's going to hit me with a club when I leave. Yes. Anybody else?
Anybody else have any other questions? No? Well, thank you, Rich, for being here. We'll keep our fingers crossed for a moment. And next week, Jace Bernhard will be here, so same time, same place. Thank you, everybody.
Sounds like Batman saying that.
Thank you, Rich.
What did they do?
What's that?
No, it's louder than hell.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
How you doing?